All right. So what's going on, my freaks and geeks? This is the Square Roundtable podcast. I want to thank all of our viewers and listeners for tuning in today. And once again, guys, it's going to be another amazing podcast. As always, we come to you guys with dope content, and tonight will be no different. So, you all, I would love to introduce our guest for tonight. Our guest literally does everything. He is a director, documentarian, actor, and is currently starring in Sleepwalk Studios' Kick Ass the Reboot. Please, guys, please welcome Mr. George Paul Knapp. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, man.
Hey, it's my pleasure to be here, guys.
Hey, we're totally happy to have you, man. I don't know what I had in my like YouTube algorithm, but for some reason, like Kick Ass the Reboot just popped up, and
Wow.
I think it's like what 10 seconds worth of footage, something like that. And I was
Yeah.
just like, yo, I don't know who this guy is. We got to talk to him. So immediately, like, I went into just crazy mode, man, and tried to find you. So I'm glad we definitely made this work. And we're going to get into a lot of questions about that later.
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, man. So I first want to get into a lot of the stuff you do personally before you got to Sleepwalk Studio. So I kind of want to know a little bit about your background. For starters, where are you from? And I want to know, how did you get into film? Like, what sparked the interest in film for you?
So I was born in Texas, like north of Dallas, but I've been literally raised around Houston my entire childhood and like a young adult life. I used to live in Spring, and then my father had a house in Houston, and my mother lived in the Woodlands. And so I would go to and from the Woodlands and Houston whenever I was a kid. And I never really did acting or creative stuff. I would do like
Oh,
poetry slams as a kid, and I was just cathartic as a young man. But my parents would always tell me stuff like, "Oh, you're the young Jim Carrey" and stuff like that. And I never really understood that what I was doing was like bits of comedy because I would do stand up in front of my classes like in first and second grade, but I didn't know I would go just do an impersonation of like a celebrity that I saw.
hmm.
And it started ever since I was a young kid. But whenever I went to college, I started studying drama and theater. And I was lucky enough to go to a school that it was like one of the big three things was drama. So all the friends that I had that were actors were the guys who partied. So I would hang out with them, and then they would have open auditions, and I would just go and riff and just do my regular shtick stuff. And the directors really liked it, and so I started taking classes, and I eventually left college and started doing theater professionally in Houston. I got my first big break in 2018 doing stage theater, though. It was mainly stage theater, and I was practicing and studying filmmaking production at school at HTC, Houston Community College. So I was always like scattered throughout the different creative processes, and I stumbled upon acting, and I really just got like the actor bug and try to continue that presence. And I got lucky enough to find a good group of people in many different spheres of theater and acting in general. And so it fell into my lap because I was nominated for Best Supporting Actor by the Houston Press in
Oh, nice.
2018
Nice.
for my first stage play.
Mm. That's sick.
And it was like a shocking situation because I was like, what? I was like, really? I was like, okay. And it snowballed from there because all of a sudden I had this new sense of confidence that I didn't usually have because I never was a child actor or anything. So it was one thing I can say about that is that confidence definitely can go to your head whenever you're young.
For
So
sure.
you feel like you've made it, but it's your first go around. So you don't have the seasoned of experience and stuff like that. But it comes with the times. And I've been doing acting professionally for about, give or take, about 4 or 5 years ish. So it's been an interesting journey, but it's all types of stuff. It's any kind of way to tell a story. The way I firstly came to the idea of the art of filmmaking was because I told myself when I was younger that I was an artist who didn't know how to draw. So
Mm.
I would find different ways to express myself through either acting or filmmaking or photography, really. And I could just see stories in every little moment that people would experience. And I'm like, that could be a film, that could be a movie, or that could be a photograph, that could be, but the story could be like solidified and it'd be timeless. Like it's secured in a place that can't be altered or changed. It's just a very defined way of capturing that moment. And that's why I like documentary film so much, is because it's literally the art of capturing the reality of our situation, but in a dramatic fashion, which I think is such a gift to give people because I think a lot of people learn things from documentaries that they wouldn't otherwise be interested in. And just like to spread awareness and education and just to get that sort of creative juices flowing for other people was a really eye-opening thing for me because I used to not see it like that, but subconsciously that's like what I would consume as a kid. I would be inspired and enthralled by these stories, and I wouldn't even realize that was a job that you could eventually have and or something you could even study.
Yeah.
So it started in college and then it snowballed from there, but it's a lot of different things that caused the initial start of it. But it's I can say for sure that it was there whenever I was a kid, and then it just became something that I focused on and focused on. And a good friend of mine named John Henry, he always would tell me to invest in yourself. And so I stopped going out really, and I invested a lot of my time and money into the art of filmmaking to get to a place that I could be really proud of. And I could say confidently for the last 2 years, it's been just an upward battle of finding the next challenge and sinking my teeth into it to get some kind of a result from all the hard work that I put in. But I've been really blessed in my young adult years, so it's been nothing but just totally craziness. But I couldn't be more happy. I couldn't be more thankful and happy.
Hey man, that's
That's
what's up.
awesome,
That's
man.
good stuff. I'm
Cool.
definitely glad to hear it. I
Yes.
definitely like your trajectory from just saying that. I think that's pretty cool. Like finding a way to express yourself, saying I'm an artist that can't draw, but I'll have something I want to say. So how can I find a way to get that out? And that's pretty cool. And I think as far as comedy is concerned, you definitely have some good comedic timing, man. And I want to know, did you seriously think that avocado could work with chocolate, or was that was that like a bit? Because I'm like, that
Oh man,
can't
oh
be
man, oh
good,
man.
bro.
I don't know if y'all have ever had like boba tapioca, like bubble tea, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, of course.
They make like avocado bubble tea,
Oh,
and it's actually really good. What people do sometimes is they add avocado to smoothies to make it more creamy, and it
Okay.
adds some protein in there and stuff. So don't knock it till you try it. It's definitely
Hey.
it's definitely good, but I will
okay.
say that I didn't do it the right way. And is that from George's Kitchen?
Yes, exactly. So, yeah,
Oh man,
I was like,
that was a fun experiment. That was
it
crazy.
was funny because I was just like, is that so? What was missing from yours? Because it didn't even
Oh
look that great. I was
man, I don't even
hmm.
know. I didn't put ice or like anything besides avocado. So it was just like straight guacamole smoothie with a
Ooh.
little bit of cheese, with a little bit of like milk and like chocolate in there, and it was just so bad. And I was like, this is gonna be great, and it just did not work out at all. But and I just cut it short there because it was just like, where are we gonna go from here? But I actually filmed a lot more of those episodes, but they got like really rowdy because the idea was just to have like an Andre or like an Eric Andre kind of show that was like
Yeah.
where my apartment was a mess. But I would always do these like theatrical things where I would put a spotlight in the middle of the corner of my room, and then there'd be a spotlight of me in the kitchen, and I would cook for my friends. And we eventually turned that into a show idea. And but yeah, no, yeah, that avocado stunt it didn't turn out well in that video. No way.
See, because it definitely made my stomach hurt looking at it. I'm like,
Oh,
I don't know.
it was it was a real reaction. That was terrible. It was a bad idea.
I'm gonna keep that in mind though, because I'm not a fan, and don't beat me up there. I'm not a fan of the tapioca balls. Not really. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah, not for everybody. It's definitely an acquired taste. I give it
yes.
that. It's not
Yeah.
if you're just looking for a smoothie and you start sucking up the tapioca, like it could be like a super jarring situation.
It's a
Like,
nightmare.
wow.
It's an unwanted surprise because I'm like,
No, because
People said that you gotta chew it or swallow it, and I'm like,
Yeah, they say you gotta chew.
I'm like, this is a smoothie, right? What are we doing here?
it's too full. I don't want. And then it's like they put so many because I remember the last time. I think the last day I was in Cali, we went to get some pho,
Oh yeah.
and they had
Yeah.
which is
Jackfruit smoothie.
yeah, and it's in pho, which is I don't care. It's like a big old bowl of beef broth. I don't understand it. I don't like it. That's the whole thing. But that's a whole other conversation. But as far as the tapioca balls, like the coffee was amazing. But then it's like the big old straw, and every time the stuff going down my throat, I ain't like that.
You didn't like the texture?
I didn't like the texture.
It was like not an acquired taste.
It's
Nah, that's
just
funny because like I like learn how to like make it myself, and
Well, look at
I
you.
like to add it to my coffee sometimes. So
Well, look at you all
It's
fancy.
special.
oh.
Right,
Right?
like
No
all
Uncle Sam to
Look,
figure it
right.
out.
What you mean? Yeah.
Look, this is Joshua.
No, like George, it's ridiculous, man. Like Joshua has like at least 6 different types of coffee makers, like 6. I'm like, what are you doing, bro? Like, it's coffee.
Hey, that's what it's
bro.
all
He's a
about. Like,
Starbucks, man. He's his
I
own
mean,
Starbucks.
I just bought my first espresso machine,
Ooh,
Awesome.
and it has changed the way I am in the morning. I am just up, and I'm like, whoa, whoa. But it only lasts about like 45 minutes to 30 minutes, and then I'm just
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah.
I was like,
That's
yeah,
about right.
man,
Mhm.
Because you're always gonna get that 2 o'clock slump. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
Every
yeah.
time.
oh, for real though, especially with coffee.
Oh
Yes.
man, exactly.
Yes.
But as far as film is concerned, man, like I expressed earlier, I love documentaries, all kinds. But as far as yourself, what are you interested? Because I did read a little bit about you. I know you like westerns and things like that. But as far as
Yeah.
documentaries, oh yeah, and Marcus is a big
Hey,
western fan,
man.
so I know we're gonna have to talk about
Hey,
that.
man. Finally, somebody that likes westerns. Oh my God.
And we will definitely get to the westerns too. But as far as documentaries are concerned, like what
Underrated.
topics are you?
Yes.
Yes, they are. But what kind of topics are you interested in covering, man? As far as
Well,
documentaries are concerned.
my first exposure to documentary format was whenever I became a production intern for Macy Crow LLC, a small production company coming out of Marfa. And, it was actually funny because I wasn't studying filmmaking at the time. My language arts, my communications professor, because I studied mass communications to begin with, and then I focused on specialization of filmmaking and acting. But whenever I first started, I would study just general stuff, and my language arts teacher heard that I had an interest in filmmaking, and then got me this internship for this documentary film company. It was this brilliant young woman, and she had this like a team of just, it was all women team, and they were all just really go-getter documentary crew, and they had some of the most like they did the documentary film called Jackson, which is a documentary that like follows the story of these 3 women in Mississippi as they try to get an abortion done in Mississippi. And it was like it became a really big thing because of the way that they filmed it. And my job was to reach out to different gender studies and pitch the movie to go into their library.
Mm.
And it was like the first time I had an actual responsibility in like the filmmaking world. So I would just email different colleges, and I would take out the hey, and I would put like their mascot's name, and I would just be like, hey, how's it going, Tigers? But the thing is, one thing that must be said about the documentary thing that I did was they did a documentary that had a bunch of interviews that were in Spanish. And one thing that people don't really know too much about me is that my mother is an immigrant from Colombia. So I'm a native Spanish speaker. At least I like to tell myself that. I put it on resumes and stuff because I can speak Spanish to communicate effectively. But the Spanish that's on the border of Mexico and America is just so thick, and just all the accents just crazy. So my mother and I had to decode interviews in this Tejas Spanish version of it, and it was just such a challenge. But it was really rewarding because it was the first time I had dealt with the consequences of like exaggerated on your resume, where and if you really care about it, it's hard to just phone in. You really want to do well on these things because you care about them. And to see my first mentor, Macy Crow, so passionate about something that I thought was like, their office was out of a house. They just had a bunch of C200s and all these different things where they would just go and shoot stuff. And it seemed like they're really doing it over here. And it didn't seem too far-fetched of something I could do. So it was just a great way to get into it. But to answer your question, the stories that I really enjoy to tell myself as a documentary filmmaker is whenever I first started doing film, the first time I picked up a camera was whenever I had one of those Samsung phones, and the cameras were better than like the DSLRs at the time, at least in the price range that I could afford. And I would film my friends skateboarding. And because I got way too tall too quick because I'm 6'2", but I like I became really tall within a short span of time, so my balance was never good. So I would just be on the longboard recording my friends just so I was able to be at the skate park. But then I would hear these nicknames of different skateboarders, and they would have these personas attached to these nicknames. And I would do documentaries, and I would follow these skateboarders after the skate park. Where do they go after this? What do they do after it?
Hmm.
A lot of it was just these guys smoking weed and stuff, but what they would talk about, the jokes they would have, the interconnection they had, they weren't related at all. They were just friends through the skate park and through the bond of skateboarding. And I thought there was such a profound story there that was solely theirs in a way
Hmm.
that I was like, people that don't skateboard would probably love to see this. They don't even really care about skateboarding. They care more about all the jokes and personality that you guys have, and that eventually led to doing music videos work for my friends who were rappers at the time. And yeah, I mean, it really started with skateboard documentaries, but then it eventually, as I grew as an artist and as a professional, I was so intrigued by the singular narratives in everybody's day-to-day life. Because I don't know about everybody else, but whenever I was a young man, I felt so much like I was the center of a story that was unfolding. It was like, I'd always say, like, why me? Why am I here right now? And I think a lot of people also feel that same way. So a lot of the stories that I like to tell are things that can highlight or showcase aspects of humanity that singular individuals may seem that they're alone in. Ideas such as depression, anxiety, that kind of stuff. I really just like to talk about the elephant in the room to make it more of an easier conversation, the conversation piece. I want people to see my work and be inspired to not hold in what they're trying to say, to be graceful about how they truly feel about certain things and how they can shine a light on themselves with grace. I feel like a lot of people these days get very intimidated by the idea of being open and aware of what they're really into and what makes them happy, that kind of stuff. And there's just an overwhelming sense of like duty that I feel that I have to highlight and showcase people that otherwise wouldn't be able to be highlighted or showcased. Some of those people that have no interest in being famous are the most courteous and most deserving of those things.
Yes.
And I would see it more and more, and I was like, he's got to interview these people. Like they just have so much life that other people could benefit from. So that's where it all stemmed down to be able to highlight life in a way that people think is spectacular, but it's really just down the street.
Wow.
That's kind of a little bit of that.
No, that's a great answer. I couldn't ask for a better
That's
answer.
a
really
great
good
answer, man.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Hey, look, this is your first podcast interview. You're really good at this, man. I gotta tell you.
Right?
Exactly,
You're natural,
man.
man.
Look at
You're
you.
natural.
I've done podcasts before, but never on the interview thing about a project that I've done, because the Kick-Ass project came out of nowhere, really. We'll go more into that later, but it's really cool to just even be involved in this type of format, because it's really what a great mentor told me once that I'll never forget was, luck doesn't exist. It's opportunity meeting preparation.
There you
I
go.
love that.
And I really believe that.
No, I can definitely agree with that, man. And I love like a lot of where you're coming from, because I definitely feel like you and being the guys are kindred spirits in a way, because we feel exactly how you about just having that connection. You know what I'm saying? Actually, just before you came here, me and the guys were talking about just being able to express yourself, being emotionally available. And like you said, how people just feel like that's such a tough thing to do. And you try to bring that out with your words of documentarian. And the other thing that I think is great that you mentioned is something that I think about often. And it's just the like phenomenon of being a person and having only your perspective to go off of. And it doesn't mean that you're a horrible person for thinking that, but because you can only see the world through your eyes, it does seem like everybody else is just there and you're the star of everything.
Yeah.
So that's why I think your work is really important. And that's part of the reason that me and the guys do what we do and love to just talk to people and get different perspectives from people that in a regular everyday setting, we're just not going to meet. And I'm just, because 9 times out of 10, I'm not just going to run up to a random person in the street like, hey, how was your day? It's just not the
Totally,
case.
100%.
But being able to reach out to a person such as yourself that's what it's all about. And the funny thing is we get comments all the time because people look at our guests and they're like, hey, why don't you guys like interview The Rock or blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And I have to tell them in the nicest way possible that this is not like a clout chasey thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to have celebrities for the point of having a celebrity. We reach out to people that truly intrigue us in a way. Somebody. Oh, go ahead, Marcus. Yeah.
And I was just gonna say, and that really enjoy their craft, and you can see like the passion in it and what they put in it. Because what you're doing, that's just simply like something that you're really interested in, that you love, and you're just doing it for fun. You're not trying to do it just to promote this and that. You was like, hey guys, you and your friends get together. Hey man, let's just do it. It's always like that, and that is always a great outcome because everybody's having fun. It doesn't become like a
Mhm.
job or oh, we got to do this. Of course, it has its obstacles because that's just film, but it's
Right.
more fun than it is like a project. You know what I'm saying? So that's what kind
Oh,
of
yeah.
people we normally connect with, and those are the best
Yep.
people in the
Yeah.
world because
Mhm.
it's a passion and
Right.
love for it, and you could like just from you talking about stuff, you see it there, and it's so that's the awesome thing about it, man.
Yeah,
Thank you, man. I appreciate that, bro.
Oh, no
yeah,
problem,
for
man.
sure. But it's like he has like just doing these interviews and stuff. It's like a little bit of a cheat code into the passion and the intricacies of the craft,
Yeah.
especially
yeah.
with documentaries and stuff. Because it's getting to understand a certain type of lifestyle and like through another person's eyes, without, I guess, or like I was saying, how we tend to think that we're like the main character life because we only see life through our eyes. But what I like about documentaries is that the person holding the camera, you can see them as looking at this thing through like another set of eyes in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I definitely feel that. So I think you're actually no, you will be the second documentarian we've had before. I don't know if you've heard of this guy. He's a really great filmmaker as well. His name is Hamilton Morris. You should definitely check him out. He does a lot of
Oh yeah,
like
the
science
drug-related stuff.
documentaries about pharmacology and all kinds of
Mhm.
stuff. So definitely
Yeah.
check him out when you get the chance.
Hamilton Morris.
Yeah, definitely a good guy. But okay, so we got to break this down, George, because
Mhm.
you are a man of film, so is Marcus, and you both have an affinity for Westerns. So what in the world? Why do you guys? I don't hate
Why
them.
not?
I don't
Why
hate
not?
Well, where's
Yeah.
all this?
Why not?
It's just not love here.
It's
Yeah.
love. I don't hate them.
He hated George. He just being nice.
He's just
He
being
hates
honest,
it.
right? He's
Hey.
not being honest today.
Check it out like this. I'll say it like this. Westerns are a type of film that they know that most people don't understand what's going on.
Okay.
So it's your entryway into the West culture is by watching Westerns because the characters are like the main characters somewhat are unlikable. Sometimes the villains are likable. Sometimes you empathize more with the vainness behind the evils of a villain or something like that. I think Westerns they strip down the conflict down to its bare bones and just has fun with distress, any type of nuance. And I've always found something, and Marcus, tell me if I'm wrong, but in Western films, I just love the characters that aren't the main characters. Like they're just so in their own world.
It'd be like the little side characters. Like it might be the guy who come into town, and he literally might be like a drunken bumpkin, but like he had the best part in the movie, and then he'll go away, and you'll never see him again.
It's the weirdest thing. It's just that they go so hard. It's so strange. I think what I think is honestly also too. I lived in the West Texas region for a number of years. Whenever I first went to college, I lived in Alpine, Texas, at Sul Ross State University. And it was in the middle of nowhere. My high school, because I went to the Woodlands High School, so whenever I graduated, there's about 4,000 students with the freshman campus included. At my university, there's about 2,100 students throughout the whole entire campus. It was a state university, so it was just a total culture shock. I went from going to have like the Galleria and movie theaters and stuff, and the movie theater that we had didn't show movies on the weekends, which was insane to me.
That's bizarre. Yeah.
It was just crazy, and they would only show movies at 2 different times every day during the week. And so it was just crazy, but I'll never forget whenever the whole town shut down whenever Black Panther first came out. And it was like literally they closed down. There was like some other movie that was happening in the next theater over, but there were so many people there that were to watch Black Panther that they put both screens in each theater at the same time so everybody could just watch it together. And it was like the first time that every single person, every kid that was in that town were at that movie theater. And it was just crazy. But to go back on Westerns, my favorite Western that I've recently seen, and I don't know if this is technically considered a Western, but Tombstone.
Oh, definitely. Tombstone.
Man, oh man, look. I watched Tombstone and I was like, oh man. Because like everyone was telling me to watch it and I was like, man, I'm good. And I watched it now and I was seeing Val Kilmer just doing that thing, that southern drawl.
Yeah.
And I was like, he's really doing it. I think honestly, one thing to take away from Westerns, in my opinion, is just I think that there's a certain level of seriousness to the approach that, and that the respective Westerns that is just so intact still that not a lot of people are. It's almost like an exclusive group of people that enjoy it because it's just getting taken away on a journey. Like they really huge emphasis on adventure and just discovery of the internal. Again, I feel like Western characters are always different from how they started, for good or worse. And I think I think it's just super focused. The narratives are very focused on what's the driving factor, what's the opposite, and how those two are somewhat cut from the same cloth because everything in the West is blended together in a way. And I think it's cool how usually the villains are wearing like maybe a black leather or something like that.
Always,
You know what I mean? Something like that with like spurs on their stuff. But I think it's just being from Texas, I've always loved the type of like just gunslinger type of stuff. And ever since I lived in the West, I can tell you what, the Wild West is still intact. And it is thriving by itself, and they love it there. Like it's just legitimately, we had students that would go to school and they would tie their horses up outside of the buildings, and they would have stuff to tie up their horses, even at the bars too. Like you would regularly see people on horseback, and I was like, "Is this for real?" And then you see what's it called, like tumbleweeds and javelinas and stuff, and road guard.
See,
It's for real.
That's a movie right there already. College in the West.
Look, and it's so cinematic. It's just awe-inspiring.
Yeah.
That I think it's just cool that it's even something that still is being created and loved by the people who help maintain the idea of what a Western film should be. Because I think to the masses, it's not really taboo, but it could be considered old school. But there are new stories to be told in the West, and I think it's in a Western format as well, because it's not just in the desert with a tumbleweed and
it's not always
there could be a gunslinger in the middle of the city, and it's still a Western in a way. But it's a strange thing, but I really I like the standoff idea of it, where look, it's going to be my way or the highway. Or we can dance, or something like that. It's wild.
And George, it's so funny because I have even given Chad a recommendation of a Western that he would love because it falls in like categories of stuff that he loves, and he will not watch it. I told him, I said, Chad, one Western that is right up your alley is Dead Man with Johnny Depp. Because it literally deals with like genres like horror, a little bit of like mystery, a little bit of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like mystical stuff like that, because it has like the Native Americans.
The mystique,
the mystique, and it's like it's shot in black and white. It's like it's really dark, and it almost steps away from the Western, and it almost becomes like a Noir. Or like a Northwestern, but it's still a Western.
It's a great combo though.
Yeah, and it's really good. And then it's crazy because he's seen Logan, and everybody here has watched Logan, right? And I said, well, Chad, if you watch Logan, you like Westerns, because Logan is definitely a Western.
Yeah.
From head to toe.
Oh man.
Because in any Western, it's always either a little girl, the young and upcoming guy who's gonna replace the old man. That always change the main character's heart, or replaces them, or make him become like a softie or something. It's always like that in the Western. And that's all Logan was. It went book by book, motif by motif, whatever. So I'm trying to get him, George. He won't listen to me, man. It's like talking to your kids. They don't want to listen to you, man.
I think eventually there always will be a place for it. No matter where you fall on the movie spectrum, there's always going to be a movie that you haven't watched, a movie that you haven't given a chance, that you watch with a new frame of light, with a new lens. And then that movie is awesome, because even as a young kid, you watch these adults, and then as an adult, you watch them, and you're like, that is not meant for children. That is not.
Yes, it's a lot of stuff like that.
That's crazy how that stuff works.
Jesus.
Oh yeah, well, I'm late to everything, man.
So
I'm gonna definitely get around to it. I'll definitely get. But I can say this. As far as like mixing genres, there were some really cool. Rod Serling made a couple of really cool like Western episodes of The Twilight Zone, and I really do love those. So I can. Does that work for you guys?
Yeah.
Am I halfway there?
Man. You can only do it in like bite-sized chunks, man.
So you went from here to here.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
You got a little chunk.
I'll take it. But yeah, George. So we wanted to know, man. We have talked a lot about your background. We definitely got to jump into the kick-ass stuff, man, because kick-ass is my dude for
Yes.
sure.
Yeah.
So we want to get like a timeline. How did you get in contact with Sleepwalk Studios? Like, how did this thing even start?
Story. Where do I begin? So I wasn't the first and foremost. What I have to say is I wasn't the first kick-ass for this project. There was a very talented actor attached to the project whenever the first look came out for the costume, actually. And the person who shot that footage is a very talented cinematographer named Dylan Reyes. And he is a friend of mine that I met online. He was one of those guys, like, whenever I first moved back to Houston from the West, I didn't really know a lot of people. All my friends had moved out of state to go to college and that kind of stuff. And everybody who had stayed were just like my skateboard friends. And I was like trying to get to a different plateau of professionalism. So I was like, well, I don't know people, but I know people that know people. So I can just DM them or switch with them, send them messages and be like, hey, I think your work is fantastic. If you need any help with anything, I'd love to just volunteer and help you with anything you need. I did that to a number of different people of which I admired their work. And all of a sudden I would get admiration back. And I was like, you think my stuff is good? My stuff is trash. But and then it was just a snowball effect of just kindness and stuff. And Dylan, Middle State Cinema is what his name is on Instagram. And he reached out to me because the thing about acting is I don't really advertise it that much on social media that I do acting, because it's just one of those things that I don't like to talk about it online or stuff. Or at least whenever I first started, I had a really big ego, because getting nominated with an award, like with an award like Best Supporting Actor out the gate, can really make your head big. But so I was like hesitant to even talk about it in public, because I didn't want people to give me praise if it wasn't like earned or stuff like that. I was always very hush hush. But if you knew me personally, if you knew me like in my real life, I would invite my friends to shows. I would tell my friends about it. And I would never and stop talking about it, because I thought it was so strange that I was even an actor. But everybody was like, "You've been an actor your entire life." I was like, "I don't know." But with the Kick-Ass project, and shouts out to everybody at Sleepwalk, because they accepted me with open arms. Again, the first Kick-Ass actor went to college. His name is Bobby, and he went to college, so I had to step in for the project, because the first teaser, like the first look, went super viral on the algorithms and stuff. And it's even shocking to me, because I did the math on our TikTok first release of our first teaser, and I went to a bar with my friends just to have a beer and kind of hang out. And I checked my phone, and then an hour goes by, and there's been 10,000 more views on it.
Wow.
And I was just like, what is happening? And then my phone was blowing up for the first time ever. And I was like, am I going viral right now? And I was like, huh, this is interesting. I did the math, and it was I think it was 1,600 people every hour for the last 10 days was one of the things. And I was just like, what is happening? I was like, what is this? But to tell you about how I got that job, it was through my friend Dylan. But so whenever I first was offered the project, I was confused. I think I misread the text. I was like, what? I was like, what are you talking about? And then I said, I read Kick-Ass, and I was like, yeah, that movie that happened like a while back. Yeah, I know Kick-Ass. Like, I would Head Girl and everything. Yeah, I watched that. I love Nicolas Cage, so I was like, anything with Nicolas Cage, I'm gonna watch it. But
Right.
I watched that movie, and I was like, this is awesome. I was like, this is so badass. And so even that they were gonna do that, I was like, yeah, man, yeah, for sure. Because ever since I was a kid, I loved superhero films. I'm a huge Marvel fan, huge DC fan, all that kind of stuff. I've always wanted to do stunt work and heavy choreography, and also just anything superhero. I'd love to suit up. But that's the dream of any young actor in my age group, is just to do a superhero thing eventually. I'd love to be an X-Men. I'd kill Gambit, play Gambit any day. Or people would always tell me Quicksilver because of my hair.
Right.
And I was like,
I see the Gambit. I see the
I
Gambit.
can see the
I could do it.
Yeah.
I swear to God, I could do it. Call me Marvel. But I was very intrigued by the idea of the project. And I was like, yeah, okay, sure. And then I saw the numbers on TikTok, and I was like, oh, so yeah, that's new. And I wasn't really even in it for anything about the glory or anything, but I was just like, I haven't really done a lot of acting stuff on camera. So I was like, yeah, I don't really care about anything else. If going back to what you're saying about, I'm not going to ask you any questions. I'm down for whatever. I just want to try it to see if it works. And then they had me, they didn't know me at all. Articles don't do enough. So I was just like, I'll make you guys an audition tape. So I just put up a tripod in my backyard and just went on for 30 minutes of improvised dialogue about kick ass and that kind of stuff. And I sent them the tape and they really liked it. So they invited me to come on set where we filmed in Rosenberg. And we started filming my material whenever I was in the costume, probably, I want to say maybe 4 to 3 weeks ago, like probably about a month or so from now. And then we just did the pickups today, about probably an hour ago. And yeah, it's been a lot of different things because the project initially went viral. That's why I was there. And these guys were like, Sleepwalk, they focused a lot on making cosplay costumes for Comic-Con and that kind of stuff. And they filmed a video for the costume and that went viral. And people were like, what is this, a movie? And they're like, we're all filmmakers, so we could probably write a script together. And then they all wrote this beautiful script that I read eventually. And I was like, dude, this is awesome. Yes, please. I'd love to do this. And then eventually I got on set and a 6-hour shoot turned into a 12-hour shoot just because we kept on going and going and going. And through the power and grace of each other, like cheering each other on, we were able to go for 6 more hours. We started whenever the sun went down and ended whenever the sun was coming up. And it was just for the love of it. It was just all pure, focused, and dedicated towards the art of it. And honestly, being an actor myself, I wasn't really too looking forward to acting with people that I didn't know. I was shy and a little bit to myself, but just how enthusiastic and friendly and open the guys were at Sleepwalk just made me so enthusiastic about trying my hardest. It almost felt like I wanted to do more homework and that I wanted to be more prepared because these guys were so awesome. And they didn't look like actors, but they were super good. And I was just like, this is intimidating. I was like, yeah, I mean, I've been an actor for years, but you guys are like awesome. And just their sheer amount of enthusiasm and energy and positive just wavelengths made me so willing and able to be there. Because you know how it is whenever you're with people and you can feel that energy exchange. If it feels strange and whenever it feels really good. And there wasn't an ounce of anything bad at all with this group. So it was just thing they needed. I was game for it because it was just like, it was hard for me to ever see that within at least my friend group because not a lot of my friends are filmmakers. And whenever I met strangers that I never had met before that were just doing anything they can to help me was nothing short of just mind blowing because I was like, is there a hope out there? I was like, because for whenever I left college, I was a little bit pessimistic and because I had a relationship that fell apart like every guy in their 20s. But I came back and I was bitter and I was very like to myself. And my father had a friend of his that he dated in college that was doing things in theater. He shoved me to go there and see this stuff. And that was the first time I had tried to get out of my shell. And the sleepwalk thing with the kick-ass stuff, it was on that same tip where it was just like a friend of mine put in a good word and I was just going off that blind faith because I had a good feeling about it. And without me even knowing, because my mother is very spiritual and she likes to write down affirmations and gives them as much positive manifesting energy as she can. And some of the stuff that happened during the sleepwalk kick-ass shoot was something that she wrote down.
That's awesome.
And I was just like, is this what happens whenever you put the blind faith in it? I mean, you stop questioning and you just go for it. And she was like, you already know the answer to that. And I was just, like, man, I feel old now. Jesus.
No, man, that's awesome stuff. That's like you said, it's faith. You know what I'm saying? You put that blind faith out there and you feel with your heart, this is something that you're supposed to be doing. And like you said, you felt really good vibes and you didn't really read too much into it. And now look where we're at now.
Yep. No, I swear it's been just the funny thing about it is that as a young actor and as a young person, there's always hopes and dreams to be known by other people, and you think you know how to react about it. But because all my friends are like, this is crazy. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And they're like, how do you feel about it? And I'm like, I have no idea how I feel about this. I was like, this doesn't even feel like it's a real thing. It feels like a long dream that's gone on too long. But then so many people that I'd never met or even knew was reaching out to me and giving me positive feedback about the little clip that we released and everything. And I was like, not really, the word confusion comes to mind. but just because I'd never experienced it before. And I'd coming from that sort of like dark place where I was like, nobody's trying to look out for me, that kind of area. And I think it's a great place to start, especially if you're young, because you can always change that mentality.
Yeah.
And there's nothing keeping you from changing that mentality besides yourself. And I think it's really great for just the general idea of keeping on, because you really never know what's around the corner. And it's just, you got to keep your eyes peeled and be open towards opportunities, because the amount of times I thought that this actor thing was not going to work, I could probably buy us all food for like steak dinners and stuff if I had enough pennies for all those times. But with that being said, the amount of times that I had been hopeful, these days it's almost tenfold now, because I just am so willing and able to get out there and try something. And it's never for the benefits of it. What I tell people is it was surprising, because my friends would tell me things. They're like, oh, did you pay to get on their podcast, or did you pay to get an article, like with Voyage and everything? And they just reached out to me and I said yes. And then now I have an article. It was just so strange, because I was like, I don't really question things. I could have, if the right language is there, if the right vibe is there, there's nothing to keep you from saying no besides that attitude. And now that I'm like totally like a sponge, like, I don't even care what the conversation is, because my father has the same situation where he'll just talk to anybody. He'll be in the subway in New York City and just strike up a conversation with the person sitting next to him.
Sounds like my dad, yeah.
And I was just like, I don't know what it is, but I just can't help myself but try to get to know people around me. And I try to keep that same mentality and energy with professional engagements now in media. We're all fans here, but we're also like, it turns into a level where like we make an effort and an obligation out of our fandom to expand the conversation. And I think it's so beneficial and such an important thing in society for people like y'all to be champions of that idea, because I'd love to say that I have a show and everything, but I don't have a show with my friends. And you've seen you guys together on the calls and everything, just it adds more reason for us to try.
Hey,
That's awesome, man.
There you
That's
go.
awesome.
No, totally. I'm so serious.
I
I'm so
appreciate
serious.
that.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate it.
Yeah,
for
definitely.
sure.
If we can inspire something positive, man, that always makes my day, bro. So
Yeah.
appreciate that.
100%, y'all. 100%. Because I was like telling people about it. I was like, you guys understand that I'm going to be interviewed by a podcast.
Oh, man.
And these guys, they don't know me, but this is probably going to work out. I was like,
man.
these guys are super understanding. They have great communication skills. And I'm like, dude, let's just do it. That flyer itself, I was like, this is so cool.
Hey, man, we appreciate all of that.
Thank
That's
you.
making my day for sure.
Yes, man.
Thank you.
100%.
Yeah, totally.
So,
My pleasure, man.
oh man, thank you, man.
Yeah, no
Especially
problem.
the flyer, because we worked really hard on that flyer. So I think that's like
Yeah.
the first time we got that flyers. So thank you.
Bro, and you guys
So-
chose a really great picture too. I was like, y'all see this? Come on
Hey.
now. I was like, come on.
Man, that's what I'm talking about. Look, so you are my
For real.
favorite guest of all time right now. So just know,
What?
yeah.
Hey, I appreciate that, man. That's
No
crazy.
problem. Okay, so we're gonna pry a little bit here. I know that the film has yet to be released, but anything you can tell us, because I see obviously a big difference between what we've seen previously in your version of Kick-Ass. And number one, I love the attention to detail, because the one thing about when I saw the earlier films versus my favorite version of Kick-Ass, which is the comic version, is the hair over the eyes.
Yeah.
Y'all did the hair over the eyes.
I
I'm
was like, they
thank
paid
you.
attention to
The
detail.
blonde hair
Detail.
over the eyes. That's what I'm like. Thank you. And that
But
costume is crazy.
But you
Oh,
know what I
yeah.
always say? What
Mhm.
do I always tell y'all? I always tell y'all that people who do this stuff, who actually like the stuff and pay attention, always make the best content, because they actually actually are fans of it and they love it, and they want to see
Man.
what they don't get to go to the movies and see. I
Man,
always say
man.
the fan made stuff is always the best stuff, hands down.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's no
Yes.
mouth hole. I love all of that. I'm like,
Oh
great.
yeah, no, it's crazy. Like and what I like to tell people is a lot of these fan films are made for and by fans. So it's just a total like, championing the source material.
Mhm.
And whenever I heard Kick-Ass, I was like, well, that's already been done before. And I was like, I don't have curly hair. I was like, this is probably not gonna work. And then they were like, no, like the character's blonde.
Yes,
Yep.
he's
Yeah,
blonde,
yeah.
so you
He
were
has blonde
perfect.
hair.
Yeah, you
And
made
I was like, word. I was like, okay, what else? There was like, it's a whole new story. Like, have you read this stuff? And I was like, no. So I looked into it, and I was like, I know somebody with bleached blonde hair that could probably do this. And I wasn't really like looking in the mirror because it was just one of those things where I was like, nah, what? And I was like, because whenever I first started the actor thing, I got the role as like a punk rock, like juvenile character that had the blonde hair. So I've always had the blonde hair has been like a staple of my look and aesthetic in my professional career. And so whenever I went back to natural hair color, it seemed like I had lost a little bit of my mojo. And I was trying to get it back with the natural hair to see if maybe is it just the hair that's giving me this energy or is it something else? And I was struggling with that mentality, and I was like, no, I can have natural hair. But the blonde head, I've gained so many memories and so much confidence with the blonde hair that it was just something that I'd love to do. And my friends would tell me, like I had a friend of mine who was a Reiki healer, and she would tell me things about how the Vikings would bleach their hair blonde and go into battle without armor as a way to show their war paint and stuff like that.
Wow.
So I bleached my hair on that same wave because it's also, I bleached my hair blonde for mental health awareness because I have a lot of friends that have gone through mental health crises and that kind of stuff. And I'm very much an advocate to talk about that and get that narrative out because I think in our society today, it's more prevalent than ever. And I think it's something that you have to champion and really support these types of situations because you never know how close it is to home for some people. It's intimidating, it's scary, but it's also doesn't have to be like that. And it can be something that's more normalized and more place that people can really be open and not judge each other and that kind of stuff in negative context, but in a positive and enlightening way and not a vicious way, that kind of stuff. But I will say though, the blonde hair, I didn't have blonde hair when I first got cast. And they saw me because I was trying to get a normal job. I was like trying to go straight. I was like, man, I need a regular job. I need to cut my hair, get a real haircut. I was like, I need to start wearing my glasses. This is going crazy. But I was just like, there was something in the back of my head that was like, whenever I cut my hair, I was like, oh, there's something missing here, man. And so the day before the first shoot, they were like, if you want to bleach your hair blonde, that would be great. Being kind and not pushing it. But I was like, we could probably just make this work. And they're like, nah, I mean, we'd love the blonde hair. I was like, you know what? I'm doing it. I don't care. I hit up my stylist and I was like, yo, we're going back to blonde. And she was like, I just cut your hair. And I was like, I know. I know, because I had the long hair. The picture in the poster had the long blonde mane. And then I cut all that off. And they thought that I was going to have that hair for the Dave character. But it actually worked out because I cut my bangs perfect to go right where the visor is. And it's funny because people would always tell me that I had anime hair and that I had anime Japanese comic looking hair. And then it finally came into a place where I needed to use it. And I was like, this is going to be perfect. And yeah, the details of it, the writers are just incredible. Zach, this guy Lunchbox, and Chris they're so fanatics about the details of stuff that it's just, they really understand the characters of it. And they know when to tell you that's enough, or they know when to tell you, try this, or try something a little bit, or where you need to be, or do more in certain areas, or tone it back a little bit. And these guys just had so much knowledge that it's almost like they had books of information to give me and talk about and find a place that they liked. They were confident enough to tell me, let's tone it down a bit, or let's go further with that. I need some more enthusiasm, stuff like that. And me being the way I am, I just totally accepting towards direction. And then these guys were brave enough to actually push that job, that motive. And it was just so cool to see that these guys were like real experts on this stuff. And I was just not really, because I'm like a lackadaisical person. I don't really take things that seriously. And it's been sort of a problem as an adult. Recently, though, since I've been indulging in being a kid again and having that new energy of being accepting and open towards things, it's just been absolutely wild because you stop questioning stuff and everything falls into your lap, but only if you have good intention in your heart, though. You can't come in it for all like the glamour and stuff. And that's what I was saying, where a lot of the fruits of the labor and all the stuff, all the benefits of this industry are just a byproduct of success, a byproduct of really caring about it. Because you're not going to become rich and famous overnight or maybe ever, but you can have a really fulfilled career if you care about the stuff.
I agree. Definitely agree about that. We're all excited, man. And we see that your version of Kick-Ass is a real shit talker. So we can't wait to see exactly
Oh
how it's
man.
going,
Oh
man,
man.
for sure.
See that Yeah, there was a lot of like whenever I read the script, I was like, "Are we allowed to talk like this?" I was like, is this? Are we allowed to do this?" And they're like, "Yeah, just go for it. Don't say anything crazy, but you can say the words on the page for sure." And I was like, so, "Okay, can I say this?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Crazy! What are we doing here?" But it was just fun to try things. But yeah, no. And also one thing that I watched too was The Mandalorian, so I could get like the body acting because I know that they weren't like you weren't able to see my face or stuff like that. How can I involve the arms and the shoulders and like the movement stuff of it? And yeah, there's a whole bunch of different things that I would try to take away from, but the hair was a big helpful thing because seeing myself in costume for the first time and actually like seeing that stuff was
That's always
really
a
crazy. Like it
experience.
was just like I was like, and I tell you what, it wasn't what I saw in the mirror. It was my shadow whenever I was walking. To
Yeah.
see like my silhouette was like I would move my arm and I'd see my arm move and I was like, this is nuts. I was like, you see me, mom? I was like, what am I doing? But it was just so surreal because I was like, this is me. It was almost like intimidating, like the Batman silhouette, where it's just a really long light that was really high up. So the
Yeah.
silhouette was really tall and long, and I was like, this is just nutty. I was like, ugh. And I don't know if you guys can tell, but I still have some makeup on from the shoot. Like my eyebrow is busted and I have a bloody nose. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but
That's okay.
no, it's crazy though. Small details like
Yeah.
keeping the eyebrow scar going for as long as we have and that kind of stuff. It's just really these guys are so detail oriented
That's pretty
that
cool.
it doesn't seem like it, but it's just there's booklets of notes and stuff that these guys don't even show you, like the actor. It's for
Mhm.
them to navigate their own thought processes to then tell me. And I'm like, give me the script, tell me all this stuff of what you guys do.
Right.
Like, dude, we would be here for months of me explaining to you how I feel about this. And I'm like, bro, I got time. It's so cool to see professional fans out here making productions and to be a part of it is just nothing short of a gift because it's just bro and to even be able to show my parents because I'm fortunate enough to be able to have Thanksgiving with my folks and stuff this year, so I get to be with my family and show them what I've been working on,
Awesome.
and it's just
Definitely.
it's really thrilling to even have something like that because it's like now I get to come to Thanksgiving and be like, George, you still doing the actor thing? And it's, yes,
I am. As a matter of
I
fact.
am. I just my short just came out today, as a matter of fact.
Let's hear
Sweet.
that.
That's definitely good stuff, man. And of course, we're gonna be there with bells, man. Bells and whistles. We can't wait to see it, and we're gonna let all of our nerd viewers and listeners, because they all love kick ass too, man. So we gotta let them know. We'll definitely
Of course, man. And it's eternally
everybody.
appreciated, man. It's eternally appreciated.
Oh man,
Oh,
thank
of course,
Definitely.
man. And especially,
Yeah.
man, look, with all the compliments you've been raining on us the
I
whole
know,
time,
right?
man. Please,
Right.
like, look, it
No,
is
y'all
our
good.
The least we
pleasure,
can
bro.
do.
But yeah, man. So, well, like I said, we're definitely gonna let all of our viewers and listeners know about that. But we are about to wrap everything up, man. And just one question that I want to ask you before we part ways. One of the major things you were talking about, and that really stuck with me earlier in the podcast, was finding a way to navigate your art and how through all of your different ventures of acting and documentaries that you've really been able to express yourself. What kind of advice would you have for up and coming artists trying to express themselves? Because I know at times it can be, we're all artists here, and it can be very
Right.
frustrating. So, what would you say to a lot of these younger artists right now?
As a young artist myself, I can say with confidence that patience is the key to all this. Filmmaking is a very long, arduous process that takes forever. You feel like your time is being wasted. It feels like it's not worth it in the moment or even after for until other people consume what you create. And what I can say is that if you have these ideas, if you have these projects, do them. If you have these ambitions, go for it. What my late uncle told me before he passed was there's never a good time to do anything.
Mm.
Just do it because you're gonna have regrets, but you can't dwell on them because you got to just brush them off and get to the next one because life is so finite. But there are these little moments where you have intuition. And the joke that I would tell people is, I have something that my mother gave me. It's called intuition. And it was just one of those things where it was just like, you have a good mind, use it. If you're creative, not a lot of people are, or not a lot of people have the confidence to even self-acclaim as being confident. It's a rare thing to be bold enough to stand by your creative ideas. So what I'm really trying to say to all the young people out there that have ambitions to get into the art of filmmaking, into the medium of filmmaking, into the industry that is motion pictures, try again and then try some more, because you'll get somewhere. I promise you, you will get somewhere. And if you hate it if you love it still after hating it, you're probably there for a reason. So just if you're getting successes somewhere, don't look at it as a small achievement. Showboat for yourself. Be proud of your achievements. Don't let your friends tell you things that get you down, because they're not your enemy. They don't want to see you fail, but they want to make sure that you're not doing something that's a shot in the dark. And sometimes it's impossible for them to tell what is and isn't a shot in the dark. And sometimes it's going to feel like only you know what's best. And some people might tell you that you're selfish for having that mentality. But I'm not experienced enough to tell you whether that is or isn't. But what I can tell you is that the effort in and of itself is like valuable enough for anybody to partake in. It's just such a hard industry to stay in if you're not fully in it for the right reasons. So what I say for sure is, if you're looking for a payday, if you're looking for fame and fortune, you might find it, but you have to consider the alternative to where maybe that's not a viable option, but it's to each his own. If you're comfortable with eating macaroni and cheese and stuff, some people like that stuff. Some people are totally content with doing things a certain way. And don't be ashamed of those things. If you just want to be a podcaster, be a podcaster. If you just want to make movies, but you don't have to do everything. But if you want to be involved, start somewhere and just keep doing it. Because I promise you, as someone who has thought about giving up on this industry times, as someone who has thought about moving on to a different career, but I've kept with it because there's this unspoken thing that I have with this external force that I just don't understand fully, but I know it's there. I trust the faith that I have in myself, and I am a believer in God and all that kind of stuff. So it's an unspoken thing. You're never gonna know how it feels until it's over. So enjoy the ride, have fun. Don't look in the past for answers in your future, all those kind of things. Because if you really like this thing, if you really like this art, this world, this whole thing that is film, you just love it so much. And you got to give yourself that same love and courage to pursue that. Because what I try to tell my friends is, look, you see that tape that they're using? I got this right here in my hand. And you see that camera they have? I got this right here. We can do this.
Yeah.
And I implore people that are out there that are young, that don't have a lot of friends, that are in the same industry. You are not alone at all. You are definitely part of a group of people that you just haven't met yet. And there are people like me, there are people like y'all, more than willing and able to help y'all get somewhere. You just got to ask, put yourself out there. And then I promise you, and I'm proof of it, for real. It's a really proud moment in my life to be able to be like, I'm proof of putting the effort gets you places. Because if you don't want to put any effort and you just think that you deserve this stuff, there's probably someone out there that doesn't even have the same number of fingers that wants to do it too. But if you're all there and if you have it within your means to do it, get it done. But don't overthink it. Just try to make your life less stressful by just getting it over with and then trying it again if it doesn't work out. Because I'm proof of it. Sometimes the first thing you do will get you to a place that you never thought was possible. Now that I've done everything, like the math and stuff, I have over 1 million views throughout all the platforms. And that still does not feel real.
That's insane, yeah.
It just feels still like, I'm like, this is just numbers. And I'm like, this is a lot of numbers. There's a lot of numbers. And I'm just like, I'm just nothing but just short of surprised and shocked. But it doesn't feel abstract. It doesn't feel abnormal, which is so weird to say. And I wasn't really comfortable or confident enough, I feel, to speak like that. But now it's just so overwhelming. People like you guys and that are just giving me praise and just, but it's deserved and it's not something that I'm taking for granted. I don't feel shy about being like, yeah, I'm happy about that. So, case in point for people who want to get into it and that are thinking about doing it, be brave, be bold, and seriously, guys, try again and then try some more because there's nothing keeping you from that lifestyle except probably yourself. And maybe, and it seems harsh to say, but your closest friends will be your harshest critics. And it's out of love. It's not because they're trying to tell you how it is. They're not trying to tell you that it's this or that or the other. They want to enlighten you to a plateau of thought that maybe you weren't at because maybe you're snowblind by your successes or stuff like that. So trust your friends, but understand that they love you and they're going to be harsh usually, but have grace and be unique with it because times like this, it's what a time to be alive, to be able to do stuff like this. It's never been a better time in humanity to consume art and media. And if you're looking for a job, I'm hiring, whatever the case is. And I implore anybody to reach out to me if they have any questions about this stuff because that's also one of my biggest passions about documentary stuff is the educational component of it, to enlighten people to things. I think it's so special to be able to do that. And the great thing about film is that it withstands the test of time.
Yes.
Show it to your kids. You can show it to your kids' kids, and then maybe they might get something from it.
Absolutely.
I agree. I completely think so, man. Thank you so much for that advice. That was perfect. And for all of our viewers and listeners, we'll definitely put all of George's information in the description below. So with that being said, guys, guess what time it is? Definitely. So we are the Square Roundtable Podcast, guys. So you can catch us every week on our website, squareroundtablepod.fandomlim.com. And one more time, that is squareroundtablepod.fandomlim.com. Go ahead, D.
Oh, and you can also catch us on Rap Nerd as well.
Yes.
On Tuesdays and stuff like that. You can catch us on YouTube. If you like the video, smack that like button. Leave us a comment about anything we talked about here. Kick-ass fans, get down there and type all the stuff. And did you see the little bit we've seen already? Tell us what you think, everything like that. Share the video because it helps us out a lot.
It helps a whole lot.
Hit that notification bell underneath the right side of the video so you get notified of this video and future videos. And hit us up on our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook group, and possibly TikTok.
Yeah.
And spam Chad's inbox with Westerns.
Yes, and that will all be in the description down below as well. So get ready.
And also definitely friend us on our Facebook group, guys. Bring some life into that Facebook group. And this time we know Kick Ass personally, and he will kick your ass if you do not follow us on our Facebook group. So see right there. So
look at that.
Right.
So don't play around. But
I'm tired of talking to my parents.
Right, tired of talking to our parents in there. So, but yeah, y'all, it has been an amazing podcast, and I would love everyone, including our wonderful guests for the evening, to reintroduce themselves before we head out. And as every night, guys, I'm your host, Chad Singleton.
Dmitri.
I'm Josh Singleton. Hashtag yes. Hashtag no.
I'm Marcus Long.
Guys, my name is George Paul Knapp, and this has been an amazing experience, guys, for real.
Hey, it has been a pleasure having you, and this has been the Square Roundtable Podcast, guys. We are out. Peace.
Yeah.